This episode, The Communicator, was inspired by the writer Andre Bormanis, who, when accused or told of this episode, is very similar to 2S as a piece of the action, where Kirk and crew find a civilization that's been affected by a communicator being left behind, or McCoy leaves his communicator behind. Said, no, I wasn't thinking about that. I just lost my phone, and I thought that would make a good Star Trek episode. I don't know about you. I've never lost my phone for an extended period of time, but the reason I lose my phone is because I don't put my phone on ring. I'm one of those people. Like, I can't stand have my phone on ring.
Does anybody, are ringtones still a thing for anyone who's not like
a Generation Z Zoomer or whatever? Yeah, I think it might just be Zoomers and kids who ride the subway who use their phone like a boombox and like listen to music out of it instead of using their headphones like a normal goddamn person. But the only reason I lose my phone is because I can't stand to have my phone ring. I have like a cell phone paranoia about it. Like, I don't like it when it rings. I always assume that it's never bad news, but I'm always like, who is calling me? What's happened? Why are they not texting me like a normal person? But that's about it. I've never lost my phone to any significant degree. Never had to use like Apple Find My iPhone locator or anything like that. Never tracked a spouse with it or anything like that. So I don't know about you. Have you ever lost your phone for a long time?
Not to really that degree. My girlfriend does it constantly though, and it's I believe it's a symptom of not having pants with good pockets, because I don't know if you knew this, but women's pants don't have good pockets in them.
That's right.
And she doesn't carry a pocketbook or anything. So she has a tendency, she doesn't do it so much anymore, but it used to be like we would go somewhere and then she would immediately put her phone down somewhere, which to her would seem like, okay, this is a weird place to put my phone, so I'm going to remember it that it's there, but then she doesn't. So it's like, where's my phone? Oh, it's behind the TV in this person's house.
Right.
So I it's become a joke that I have a weird sixth sense about where her phone is when every time that she loses, because I'm usually the one who finds it, because I see I've clocked it into my brain. When I see her put it down, I remember where she put it.
It's always the last place you look, as the saying goes. That's where it is. Let's talk about the Communicator. It's the next Enterprise episode that we'll be covering.
Was the other half of this episode inspired by the time Brannon Braga fell asleep on his hand or something?
Well, it might be. We'll have to think during the break. I'll think of how that might actually have come to fruition. We'll take a break. We'll play a clip from the episode. I will be back and we'll break down the Communicator.
The speaker at the political rally. What was his name? Chancellor Coultre?
Coltare.
You could write a book about him alone. His speech reminded me of Winston Churchill before the Second World War.
Something wrong? Malcolm?
My communicator.
What about it?
It's gone.
All right, so The Communicator is the 8th episode of the 2nd season. It aired on November 13th, 2002. Teleplay goes to Andre Bormanis, who I mentioned before. Story credit goes to Rick Berman and Brannon Braga, who can't resist getting a story credit if they're not going to write the goddamn script. Directed by James Contner. In-universe date is unknown, but it's 2152. In this episode, during an investigation of a pre-warp alien planet, Reed accidentally leaves his communicator behind. When he returns with Archer to get the piece of technology, they're captured by soldiers who accuse them of being enemy spies. This episode, to me, is 10 years from now. If you asked me to describe an Enterprise episode, I would combine 7 different Enterprise episodes into this one, and I would probably be confused, or I would be describing the Communicator. If I'm like, they get captured by aliens, they're like, are you talking about the one in the first season where they get captured by militaristic aliens? It's like, no, there's another one. Is it the one where Reed is a whiny bitch who wants to be punished? No, that's not Minefield. This is Communicator episode. This one, felt a little redundant. I don't know if this was a good episode. It was maybe semi-competent at that, but it's going to be another one of these episodes where it's like Enterprise feels like it just has an idea and it never grabs onto it effectively, and it always ends up just going like, okay. Just before I throw it to you, it's like, is this the Enterprise episode where this sort of half-baked action sequence at the end of it. You go, yep, that's one of these episodes. It's got that. What did you think about the Communicator?
I didn't realize that there was a TOS episode that was similar to this, because I thought the setup was great. I really liked the idea of they went down to this planet and they accidentally left a piece of their technology behind. But as I was watching the rest of the episode, I couldn't help but think, what really is the worst that would have happened if they had just left it there? Because this is, it clearly snowballs in the direction that they didn't want it to go initially, which is why they go down to get the Communicator. And thank God, like, the saving grace of this episode, if there is one, is at the end where T'Pol is like, this ended up being a lot worse than if you had just left the Communicator there. And he's like, yeah, I know, this got out of hand very quickly and we probably did a lot more damage than if we had just left.
Shouldn't have lied. I shouldn't have lied about being a part of the alliance with those guys. That was a bad idea, T'Pol. I apologize for lying and making things worse.
Like, I feel like I want to call that a step in the right direction, because I feel I was not expecting them to recognize that at all. So the fact that they did recognize that they really fucked up was refreshing. However, it's so much of stuff that they've done before, and it is just, well, except for the disappearing hand thing, but like that I didn't understand, because that didn't play into the story. No. It was just like a fun thing that they did. It's pure filler.
I was, I hadn't seen this one, and I'm just thinking, I'm like, how is his hand going to play? Like, are they going to totally cloak him and he sneaks into the prison and, as an invisible man and sort of rescues Archer and everything? But no, he gets an invisible hand. Travis Mayweather makes a invisible jerking off joke, I think.
Yeah.
So you're going to eat the popcorn. You're going to eat the popcorn. It's like, okay. Is he going to grope his dates? I didn't understand what was going on with the invisible hand in that situation.
Yeah, I don't know. That was uncomfortable.
It's a pointless subplot. It's totally filler. They came in 4 minutes short, and they needed something to do at that point.
Well, it's weird, because I thought that I was thinking, I'm surprised that wasn't its own episode, because that feels like, that feels like something that would happen as a catalyst to a story. Is like, he gets blasted with the cloaking device and his arm disappears, and then it starts like creeping over the rest of his body or something. I don't know.
Weird continuity with the Suliban ship too. That apparently they've had it since Broken Bow, I guess.
Yeah.
I was thinking it.
Is it Broken Bow, or I thought it was? Didn't they say
it's not from Shockwave? It's not from Shockwave where they're piloting it. Apparently, I looked on Memory Alpha. It's apparently from Broken Bow, which is interesting. I don't remember that at all, but that's, I guess, where it came from. But they've never dealt with it until now, which is, it's fine as a writer's choice, but it's just strange that it's been sitting there, and it is doing a little bit of damage if you're a continuity nerd about how much cloaking interaction they have with. Like, they're not unfamiliar with cloaking technology by the time that it rolls around in TOS. So I guess it makes, like, I could see an easier way to get them down there in a subterfuge manner than this cloaked ship. And if you're not going to have the cloaking thing trip invisible as part of your plot, it seems like an unnecessary thing to bring the ship into it that they've been toting around for a while, apparently.
Yeah. And on top of that, it's like, have they been to a planet that isn't in the middle of like some sort of civil war yet?
No.
Because it feels like every place they go to, the people they run into are dealing with some sort of conflict, which is, I don't know, man.
Vague conflict. The alliance is doing something somewhere.
I would say they were trying to make a point by that, if it wasn't so if it, like, it doesn't really ever matter. It's just a story device that they just keep using over and over again.
Same with Dean Stockwell. I think Dean Stockwell's group had a similarly vague, pointless description about what they were.
Or the fucking Kurgan in the desert was the same thing, wasn't it? He's like fighting, we're our enemy that you haven't seen and will never see.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And on top of all that, the whole time I was thinking, if there was ever an excuse to use the teleporter or the transporter, you would think this would be it.
I would do it just to, even if it breaks the communicator, just beam the communicator out of there. And if it breaks,
Sure.
whatever, you got it out of there.
Yeah.
But
So
go ahead.
All together, it's a good concept that is just, I don't know. I wasn't really feeling it.
No, I don't think it's a good episode, but it's so for reference,
Also, just for a second, let's say they just left the communicator there. What are they really going to get from this thing? Because it's not going to communicate to anything,
right?
Like
there's nothing else.
It's just a piece of machinery. Then they probably can't figure out what it is. They throw it away.
It would be like those crystal skulls on Earth that they're like, no man could have made this 3,000 years ago, and you go, that's a peculiar thing. I wonder what it actually is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a nice idea, but unless you can link to a direct way in which leaving this thing here is actively going to subvert the natural evolution of this people, going down and claiming you're genetically altered superhumans fighting for the alliance that's currently trying to destroy you. Also, we have invisible ships.
Yep.
Is doing a lot more damage.
Yeah. So just for reference, the Piece of the Action episode that this is kind of referencing is a TOS episode where Kirk and Spock and everybody find a planet where apparently a previous ship had visited and left. I think they leave a book behind. And the book that gets left behind serves as the foundation for the civilization that evolves on this planet.
Sure. That works.
But it's a comedy. It's a straight comedy episode because the book that they do is like a really bad gangster novel. So
that's that one. Okay.
It's the alien one. So the aliens on the planet all talk like Chicago mobsters. We're like, got these heaters, see? And they've all got Tommy guns and stuff like that. It's kind of it's a cute comedy. It's funny and it's kind of lighthearted and it has Shatner running around going, I got these heaters and stuff like that. And then the punchline is after they save the day and they get out of there, Bones, I think at the end, like pats himself down and is like, oh, shit, like I left my communicator down there. And that's kind of the end of it. And this is Enterprise taking that idea and playing it deadly serious, but not interestingly serious. It's just, it's another brown planet with white people and sand. And it's just, everything is so similar. Everything is so identical.
Head bumps in military uniforms.
Which they keep calling surgical alterations, but he just glued some shit onto their heads. Yeah. There's nothing surgical about this whatsoever.
Their head bumps are literally as complicated as the ones that they're wearing in real life while filming the show. Yeah.
And it's so much more effective when the other alien goes, their blood, it's red. It's not cheesy, and it's like, it's just a much better way to explain that this is an alien, like what's wrong with this guy. And instead of just having them peel the, like a paper mache forehead off of their head and then be like, what the hell is this guy? He's been surgically altered.
Yeah. I have never seen that TOS episode, but I knew of the gangster one. And every time I see a still from it, I'm like, how the hell did they explain
Tarantino
this?
wanted to remake that. That was his idea, apparently.
That was part of I heard that was part of the
action.
Thing. Yeah.
But that's how they get around it. Yeah. It's a comedy, though. It's a straight comedy episode.
Man, talk about, the original series had a skill for figuring out how to work the limitations of what they could do into the show. Yeah, production wise. So it's like, shit, we get all this gangster stuff, but we're doing a sci-fi show. How can we use this gangster stuff? They figure it out. Whereas this one, it's like everything is so samey. There's no, I don't feel like there's any inspiration or innovation when it comes to these people that they're going down to see or these civilizations. They're all the same. Yeah. Like I would love it on the show if the next episode was like, they went to a planet full of Shakespeare people. Yeah. Just to mix it up or something, it's all, like you said, white guys with head bumps and
military. They're always militaristic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for
they never make a comment on it. Like they're going to this planet. That's the one thing that's weird about this one is they come back at the beginning and they're like, man, don't you just love heading down and taking a few days to check out a new civilization, keeping things under wraps? And then when they go back, it's like they're going down to like Russia in the 1950s or something. It's like,
well, they make a reference at the start. Arch is like, it seems like a nice place. There's a little bit of propaganda all over. There's propaganda all over the walls, but I assume everything is on the up and up. So they're not particularly tentative about this planet. And then
I didn't see any homeless or black people. I guess they must just not have them. I can't imagine that they do anything horrible to them or anything. They don't seem like that's out of society.
This is a great golf course of a planet. Just no Jews, no blacks. It's just the perfect place where I can just whack a ball. Yeah, and so Archer knows about it's. I really think that it's so repetitive that I really don't know if they understand the damage that they're doing to Archer as a character, or whether the show thinks this guy is completely out of his league. Like, he has no idea what the hell's going on, because this is yet another episode of Archer Learns the Lesson. But his decision to go down to this planet, and his lie, instead of being like, yeah, we're aliens, man. Like, what are you going to do about it? He's like, yeah, we're actually a secret plot to kill you that your enemies are planning to do. So you should deal with that. And
well, the best part of that is when he gives them like the little piece of it, and then Reed just yes ands him off into the sun. And then at the next scene, when they're like, they're going to be executed, Reed's like, I'm sorry, sir, I've just never been that much of an improviser, and I took it a little bit too far. Yeah,
it's a terrible lie. It's a terrible Archer decision. Just you can either say nothing, you can tell the truth, and then when you tell them the truth, they'll probably go, so you're really spies, right? And this is just kind of some kind of story. And you're like, no, I'm actually an alien or whatever. But I think there's a whole lot of problem with the setup here, because I think that the development of the planet that they're interfering with is actually pretty important. So like the context of where they stand is important. When it starts, they seem like they're standard Star Trek aliens. They have like kind of futuristic guns, and their jet fighters look like kind of UFO jet fight. Like there's an advancement to them. Yeah. But then in the jail cell, Archer's like, these people haven't even split the atom yet. It's like, really? Right. They don't seem that primitive. Are they supposed to be modeling them after 1940s Germany or something? Because that doesn't really come across either. They're vaguely blandly militaristic looking, but they're not designed as a like fascist state. At least that wasn't the impression that I was getting. And Archer comes back from the whole thing saying what a great town that was to visit. So he's clearly that's not the ethos of the planet or anything like that. It's just I don't know. It's not connected. They don't make these connections that I think are important to set up what's going on with them.
Yeah. I think this episode would be a lot more, because I left the thing there. We got to go get the thing. Okay, we got the thing. Is not super interesting. This concept to me would be a lot more interesting if everything that happens in this episode happened in the first half, and so the second half of the episode becomes them having to figure out how to clean up this mess that they've made even worse.
Yeah,
like the communicator thing is fine, but like if the first half was them going down, getting the communicator, and in the process doing all this stuff that is going to then damage the culture even further in a way that they weren't expecting, then having the rest of or maybe the last third of the episode become, do we do something to fix this? Are we in the wrong? What have we done? Is there a way we can do this? Do we just go down and tell them? I think becomes a little bit more interesting than just your standard, smash and grab rescue plot with an invisible arm.
Right. Because it starts off with that, which is that the attempt to go back for the communicator is kind of like chasing losses in gambling or something. Yeah. It's like, we'll try to fix this, and they go back, and it makes it a worse situation.
Also, the fact that they were armed the whole time, like if they felt that they were being surrounded, I would have been like, okay, let's get our phasers and just blast everybody, grab the thing, and get the hell out of here. They won't even know what happened, but they won't even have time to realize what happened by the time we're already gone. And instead, they let themselves get caught and then improv their way into being executed.
Yeah. I mean, Archer wanted to do the table as an umbrella in that guy's face, so he picks up the table.
Could you imagine if you were getting ready for a bar fight and you're like, okay, let's go. And you go like this, and your buddy immediately like leans down to pick up a table. Like, what was his plan?
He recognized danger when he saw it. Obviously Tarantino got inspiration for his bar scene in Inglourious Bastards from this incredibly tense bar scene that was going on here. Yeah,
that's how they knew that they were aliens, because they ordered drinks like this.
That's right. Archer has to go out speaking the King's English.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the it's just another in a long line of Enterprise episodes where there's one good scene here. It's the one I like, the scene where Archer and Reed are in the prison cell the night before their execution, and they're talking about it. They're somber, but it's like appropriately toned, I think. Even the joke about, like, he's like, I'm sorry, Reed, you'll never get to write that report or whatever. It's like, there's a little bit of humor stuck into it, but it's, at least that's the moment of Archer reflecting on something, because I would almost disagree with you about the ending where I almost think that Archer doesn't get it at the end, really. Like, T'Pol has to tell him, but it's not these last 5-minute wrap-ups where T'Pol says something and Archer just looks out the window. He looks out the window in a lot of the end of the episode, just gazing out, which is another sort of similarity thing. But you need more scenes. Like, Trip's storyline is eating up scenes where Archer and Reed talk about this, to me. That's the damage that it does, is that side plot does, is because you need more time with Archer thinking about what the ramifications are, or even like pontificating on what he thinks this development means for this planet or something, because we don't get any insight to it. And Archer's decision, it just doesn't seem like he's thought about it. He seems so clueless about everything, and it's really frustrating because he constantly hits these storylines, and it's just resolved by, it's the show is so built to action sequences that they have a huge gunfight with aliens, and Archer's like, well, at least we got the communicator back. It's like, what are you talking about? You did all this, like, they saw you fly off an invisible ship, and you jumped into an invisible ship, flew off with a woman with pointy ears and stuff like that. It's like, you haven't done anything, Jonathan, and I don't know why T'Pol has to tell you that.
Yeah. Every time they do this, it makes him look dumber and dumber, and like worse or less equipped to be a captain. Because this is like the excuse me, this is like the third or fourth Prime Directive-y episode that they've done, and they're all more or less the same, where at the end he's like, I had no idea that this was this important, and I may have been, it's the same kind of lesson he learns every time.
Yep. We can have impacts on things that are beyond what we should do.
And every time it happens, it's like he doesn't learn anything for the next one. Like, it's not like the way he handles things this time is any different because of what they did the last time it happened. Yeah. And so it's always T'Pol that ends up reprimanding him about it afterwards. And it's like, how many times it makes him look like a child. Yeah. How many times can you punish him for doing the same thing?
Yeah. No, I know. It's a problem of Enterprise's non-serialization, right?
Sorry, I was just saying, like, is this episode better if it's Reed and Trip instead of Reed and Archer? And at least in that case, you've got Archer up on the ship who understands the gravity of what's happening. Yeah. And has dealt with this before. So when they get them back and Reed and Trip are kind of like, chuckle hut over here about what they just did. It's like, you don't understand what you've done. Mm-hmm. You've drastically altered this society's evolution, not because of what you left behind, but what you actively did trying to fix it. That I feel like that would be a lot more impactful than just having Archer be a fuck up again.
Yeah, I think the non-serialization ties in because I think that they're trying to build this thing that the Prime Directive is basically a Vulcan understanding of what to do, because it's always T'Pol who brings it up. And I think that I could see a way that this series goes where the Prime Directive is not really, it's not something that the humans of the ship think about. They're kind of excited to go out and meet people, and so they frequently don't understand the importance of why something like that should be important to them in their performance of it. It would still, serialized wise, it would draw a problem as to, like, how many times are these guys going to repeat the same fucking problem that they're going to run into. Mm-hmm. But at least to me, that would give Archer his point of view I would sort of understand his point of view, which is that as a human who's not familiar with this kind of thing, he just keeps thinking that everyone out there is going to be impressed to meet them in some way. Like it's like, oh, it's what could go wrong meeting people, and they don't do that. He kind of understands it, but he doesn't seem to really understand it to the point where he doesn't have a problem with just going back for the communicator. If Archer had a problem with this, he should be like, we need to come up with some pitch perfect plan to go down there. You tell me exactly where that communicator is, and we'll go down and we'll find it, and we'll move on from there. But he's just like, yeah, we'll go down again. We'll hang out. We'll go to get a drink. We'll eat some of that food that guy has, and then we'll get arrested.
Yeah, and they also go down to find it, and the first attempt is like they're looking for their keys. And so they go back to the booth they were sitting in, and they're like, well, it's not in the booth. And only after that point does Reed go, oh, you know what? I got this thing I can actually track it with that I can pull out. We can look at that. It's like, why wasn't that the first thing you did instead of blindly feeling your way or suspiciously feeling your way around a bar stool that you would just add?
Is that guy giving that other guy a blowjob in the back seat? What's he doing under there? I know it's just and it's another scene of Reed really is a masochist, right? Like he's just like, Captain, I need punishment. I've been bad. He's like, what are you going to do to punish me? And it's just like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Just although I also don't like Archer's everyone makes mistakes. What are you talking about? Like this is it's the one thing you're not supposed to do down there is impact this planet, and he did it, and you're just like, yeah, don't worry about it. We'll just go down and grab it. It's really cartoonish, and I think that the reason we keep talking about it is that the show doesn't seem to understand how bad that is for them. Yeah. The show is just like, the show thinks that doing these stories with Archer as kind of an aw shucks personality is effective for him. And it's just, he's missing something, like desperately missing something as a character for these stories.
Do you think that this story improves if they did play it as a comedy? Because I mean, they are playing it so straight that it's hard to ignore the hole that they keep digging themselves into, like in a real negative sense. But if you play this as a comedy, the fight scene in the bar becomes a little bit easier to swallow. The scene where Reed improvs the Captain America story becomes more of an easier thing to swallow because of how ridiculous it is. And it's, I mean, I guess there's still awaiting execution, but it's a little bit more, action adventure-y than like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Yeah
that would have been a great improvement to an already great story. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, if halfway through Gary Oldman is like, actually Benedict Cumberbatch is a genetically altered super soldier from the USSR.
That's waiting for our Voyager coverage if that happens. Yeah, I think I'd like it as a comedy. Enterprise doesn't seem to want to do that, really. Like, I think that the modern shows are almost like very wary of TOS's camp aspect. Like, I think TOS's camp thing had kind of sunk in to this point, and I think that the productions of these new shows just don't want to touch that kind of stuff. They're not really interested in it, and they think that it has to be more serious than that, which is what leads you to episodes like this where it's treated deathly serious. I'm surprised that they don't push things a little bit more, because I can see a modern Discovery or Strange New Worlds episode, I don't know if we're going to do this constantly, where leaving the communicator behind is a commentary on social media or something. This alien culture finds the communicator and does something with it, and it's just like, oh, shit. Like, you almost... The Enterprise crew, by going down to rescue the communicator, see a change in this society that they see in themselves, but they never thought as kind of a flaw, that kind of thing, like the social dilemma is pointing out. And that would be interesting, but Enterprise doesn't try to say anything about its stuff. And for how many of the episodes are based on, let's reference a previous Star Trek idea, they don't spin it in a new way. They don't do anything to it, and it ends up, all the episodes are like, this is a 2 out of 5, because it's not worth the time that you'd spent to watch it, really.
Well, it's weird. It's we talk about Lower Decks being the most classic Star Trek of the new Star Trek shows because the structure is very much like a TNG episode. This actually, I feel like, Enterprise is very reminiscent of the way they would do a show like this in the 60s.
It is, yeah.
Because it has all the same kind of elements where it's,
plot beat. This feels very much like you could be describing a TOS plot. If you just laid out like what happens in it, that sounds very much like a TOS thing.
Yeah, and it sounds like a less the Enterprise in the 60s would be like a show that it was like the GoBots to Star Trek's Transformers, you know what I mean? Where it's like it's doing the same stuff and it's got the same structure where it's like, oh, the guys in the opening credits go down to a planet and they but we don't have the money for Klingons, so we're just military white guys with bumps on our heads. And then, they kind of do some hijinks and then they get into a fist fight and then it's over. Like, though it feels very kind of old in that sense.
Yeah.
Like it is very much of more of the 60s era than the 90s Trek.
But not satirical or
right. But what they're
interesting
missing, they're missing is the interesting plot stuff and interesting style stuff where it's like imagine it's like TOS if they never changed anything from the way it looked in the cage, where everything was just like different degrees of yellow ochre instead of red, yellow, and blue. It's just a drab looking show that's just always builds up to a gratuitous ass kicking to throw it back to the prisoner.
Did you? Yeah. I was really surprised Archer didn't get shot escaping because they play that up like he gets shot in the ass when he's getting in, and then it's that scene where they're all together and he's patting himself down and reads like, "Something wrong, Captain?" I would have bet my life that Archer had been shot at that point, and that was like the risk that he was taking. But they play it off as a joke about the communicator thing.
Or you do the thing where he gets shot and they end up in the back in the ship, and then he reaches into his pocket and pulls out the communicator and it's got a bullet in it.
Can't leave home without this thing. I was very surprised by that.
Yeah, everything about the way they were shooting that scene screamed someone is getting shot.
Yeah, that's a little bit clumsy. Archer's like big ass can't get into his he has a little bit of trouble like climbing into the
you want to talk
pod.
about clumsy is oh my god, like they get all caught up in this gunfight that they're having inside this barracks, which once again is staffed by like 8 to 12 guys max.
Yep.
And then they're in the middle of that, and then Archer's like, shit, I gotta go get all that stuff that we left behind. Now it's like 12 things instead of one things. And so he like shambles his way through the gunfight and like runs into this office and he's like trying to
very much like GoldenEye 64. You kick the door open and it's just the two guys standing. You shoot them with you.
You get your two phantoms and you immediately take out those two guys. But then he's like trying to carry all the stuff. Like he needs a bag for it because all those props are really like difficult to carry more than one at a time. Yeah. So he's like using his shirt as a basket to kind of carry everything. It's just so awkward and weird.
It really is. I don't have much else to say about this one. I don't think I don't know. Do you have anything? Like I find this one very samey. It's really just it's functional in a way that maybe the past 3 episodes haven't been, where I can sort of understand everything that's going on here. But what
was up with the whole thing? I'm sorry, the whole thing with the invisibility, the cloak thing, didn't even like play it. Like they got the cloak to work totally fine, and then it kind of glitched out for like 25 seconds, and then it was back. It was fine. Like I don't even know what the point of doing that stuff was, other than.
Right, there's nothing gained by the ship being invisible because it was getting shot by the fighter jets. It can just fly down, land there. They can all hop into it and then fly away from it.
Yeah. And T'Pol's going on this mission. Why is T'Pol not like, every single thing we do here is bad? This is just making things worse every time we do. Every movement we take is just, it's like trying to repair a sandcastle that's already falling down. You're just making it worse.
She's her running commentary during the gunfight is just like, you made it worse. It's worse now. You shot that guy. It's much worse now. Yeah, the other surprising thing about the episode is that how do you like the ending? Because there's 2 ways you can go about here. They can they can lie and successfully cover up to this alien planet that they are extraterrestrial for them, right? So they could sow doubt in this alien where the alien commander thinks that they're aliens, but then by the end of the episode is, I guess I was wrong or something like that. Like, and this is just a normal turn of events. They don't do that here. They leave the planet. And I think one of the major problems here is that, like you're saying, halfway through this doesn't happen, and then you see the end results. They fuck off from this planet after probably doing some fairly catastrophic escalation between the Alliance and this group. Like, now this group is operating under, these guys have super weapons. We better nuke their asses before something goes crazy here. Right. And because Enterprise is serialized, we're never going to know what happened to this planet. And Archer is just kind of, causes a 40-car pileup on the highway and walks away from his car and gets on a taxi and just drives off. And it's like, well, geez, that was a hell of a thing that happened back there. It's really unsatisfying, I think, to have it that way. I need to see what happens, or I need to have the planet not be altered in this way. I think, particularly in this episode, I think that it's one of those two options. I don't know which one you would prefer.
Well, I was just thinking, like, they get to a point where I feel like T'Pol needs to be like, the only way out of this is if we kill everybody and make it look like a mass suicide, right? Because there's nothing else we can do. Because yes, you've just escalated the war between these two people. So unless we take out all of the witnesses, this is just going to be so much worse than what we got here.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen. Sorry, what were the two options again?
Well, it's either Archer has impact and we see the impact, so the planet nukes each other or something at the end of the episode, or he successfully tricks them into, he successfully disguises that they've interfered at all. So it's as if nothing ever happened, but they do a better job of covering up that they've been there.
Well, I think that those are two very different episodes. I think the second one feels more like everything is played a little bit lighter, because to successfully cover your ass in this situation feels like it's a little bit more suited for a comedy.
Yep.
Whereas getting back to Enterprise and then watching a nuclear strike happen and the destruction of a civilization, a little bit darker.
I think neither. I think that the Communicator is built for that nuclear option, but you don't see it. The show is hesitant to do that, and now I'm getting to a point where is it too redundant? Is like, because Archer would have so many episodes where civilization has just wiped itself out because he entered their realm of existence.
Well, that's the thing, is they've done this so many times, and the takeaway is always, who knows what kind of damage we may have done. It's like, okay, you did a lot of damage. Let's see. Right. How about you for once find out what kind of damage you did, and maybe it'll stick this time.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why the TOS episode is sort of a better setup, because you walk into the effect of it. Like you walk. Yeah. The thing that the inciting incident happens before they get there, and they see the effect of it, and they go, there's no real moral philosophy about that in the TOS episode. It's just kind of a comedy joke thing. But here, there could be, if the Vulcans had interacted with this group before. We've learned in previous episodes, the Vulcans seem to have no problem interacting with other alien species at this point. So if they do it, the Enterprise stumbles into it. T'Pol has a learning experience about, like, oh, we need to live up to our thing. Archer gets a learning experience of, oh, this is what interference can do. This is like why guiding people like the Vulcans, guiding other societies maybe isn't necessarily the best thing. I don't know, something. You don't get that.
Yeah, my problem with the Prime Directive and these ideas is that there's this, they operate under the belief that exposing themselves to a pre-warp culture is going to be so detrimental, and it's going to really skew the evolution of the society and whatnot. But that doesn't take into account the real life idea of like alien abduction. Because it's like I kind of side with Archer when he's kind of musing in the jail. Where, what if we just told him the truth and took him up to the Enterprise and showed him around and had dinner in the captain's quarters and then dropped him off? It's like, yeah, if you did that, the guy you did it with would probably come back being like, guys, I just went to a spaceship.
Yeah.
And the captain let me sit in his chair, and we had
chef made us a meal, individual meals.
The chef made us an individual meal, oddly lacking in gravy where there should have been gravy, and it was amazing. They've got busty women with pointy. You won't believe the women on the ship. They're unbelievable. And then they immediately go, okay, sure. We don't think the captain is fit for command, so we're going to have a quick mutiny real quick.
Yeah.
Like I think they could very feasibly have stamped out this problem by just telling them the truth and doing that exact thing, because one person spouting all of this stuff is not going to change an entire civilization. Most likely that person is going to be thought of as a kook, or like, okay, the captain or the general's under a little bit of stress. Maybe we give him some time off,
Yeah, I think
sorry, just one last thing. Because every time that they do this, if they see what's going on, it's going to drastically change their evolution. They're always operating. It always feels like they're operating under the idea that the civilization that they're dealing with is like dumb or primitive. And
it works for super primitive. I think it works for unbelievably primitive societies that would be like, this is a god thing that's come down.
Like in Into Darkness, the beginning of Into Darkness, I think that works perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when it's a civilization of people who seem to be,
they probably have alien TV shows. They probably have TV shows about aliens coming down. Yeah. Yeah.
Then it becomes a thing of like, okay, sure, I get the idea that if you step in, like if you see this war going on and the Enterprise like flies down and decides to defuse the situation, sure, yeah, then you are doing something that you shouldn't be doing. But as far as like telling one person that you're an alien or something, or the communicator, it's like, is this, how big of a deal really is this? These are not idiots.
It's really the problem that the discovery of warp drive is a fairly bad marker to go by. It should probably be something more along the lines of, has this society gone through a scientific revolution or an enlightenment period where they're not sort of shackled to like the pre-Galileo times in humanity. Like they're at least open to what's going on outside of it. Because if maybe I just don't have an imagination, but if aliens visited us, and it was documented.
What's this? Whoa! What's this? If shit,
right?
Wes?
Well, if they had something beyond just Navy videos of UFOs flying around and doing stuff, if they came down and they're like, "Hi, we're aliens. Like, welcome. You're not alone in the universe." Would we be irreparably damaged through that? Like, I think that as a caveman, if you saw an alien come down and you're like, "Oh, like this is the creator of the universe," that's a problem for you. But if it came down like us or the aliens in this episode, I feel like people would be like, this is unbelievable. But if anything, I almost feel the Alliance, they'd be like, we can't have a war with each other. There's so much hope of like what's possible. Like if we survive this and we become these people, and it seems more hopeful than anything. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
One of my favorite details that didn't make it into the movie Prometheus, or maybe it does, I don't think it's in the movie, is that when they talk about these engineers, these aliens coming to Earth, there was the idea that one of them had come back to Earth to talk about the enlightenment of the engineers people and the potential of the human race.
Yeah.
And that was about 2,000 years ago, and they ended up crucifying him. So like the idea that Jesus was one of these guys and it didn't take, and they murdered him.
Yeah.
But like, I actually think the warp drive thing is a false marker, because wouldn't it be better if the aliens showed up after the civilization figures out astronomy? Because like if you're like you're saying, if you're a pre-Galileo civilization that has no concept of your planet in the universe or in the solar system or whatever,
relative to where you are in the universe,
an alien showing up is going to blow your fucking mind. But if you understand the concept that, oh wait, we are just one of many planets in this larger system, then I feel like if the aliens show up, then they're like, hey man, welcome to the party, you just figured it out. There's so much stuff you can do. We hope to see you again once you get your cars working. Once you get your ships working, it'll be great. We'll go out and we'll go visit Pluto or something. But like that way, it makes it more aspirational almost. Whereas if you wait till they get the warp function, it's like on Earth they just finished 3 world wars.
Right.
It's not like developing a faster engine all of a sudden means we're a more enlightened people or something.
I think Star Trek takes that as that is what happened. Like once you develop that, everyone gets along and sings Kumbaya at that point.
Yeah, because every time there's a new energy source that's created, that's exactly what happens. If anything, there would be a 4th world war over the technology for warp speed.
Yeah, I think it's a more realistic interpretation just because at that point, introducing yourself is not the be-all, end-all threat. Like you can still have a philosophy where I'm not going to give you guys any technology because you have to earn it yourself. Like you do the work. I'm not just going to give you a replicator or give you a warp drive. But the fear of just them knowing that you're not from their planet would evaporate, and that fixes a lot of Star Trek plots in some ways. Like in this one, they'd still have to go down for the communicator, but there's no real danger in telling these people that they're aliens. They can't let them have this technology.
Right. Yeah.
It's strange. Let's take a break. We'll play a clip from the episode. We'll come back and we'll give our final thoughts and read some patron thoughts about the communicator.
You took a risk coming down on that cell ship. His cloaking device could have failed.
A calculated risk.
I'm glad you did it. What's important is that we got everything back. The communicator, the phase pistol, the shuttle pod. We could have done a lot of damage to those people if we'd left any of it behind.
We did do damage to those people.
We've changed their perception of the Alliance.
They now believe their enemy is capable of creating genetically enhanced soldiers, not to mention particle weapons.
And thanks to that Suliban ship, they also think the Alliance has developed invisible aircraft.
You don't have to leave technology behind to contaminate a culture.
All right. Thank you very much for supporting the show, and thank you for listening. If you want to support the show additionally, besides listening, you go to patreon.com/thepensky-file. A couple dollars a month gets you extra stuff like extra podcasts, extra behind-the-scenes things. There's the poll access. There's the commentary videos. We just did Liquid Sky, which was the last sci-fi movie we did from '82. We did a rewatch of Relics. We did a rewatch of Measure of a Man. Blah, blah, blah.
We have not watched The Relic, the
No.
horror movie from the mid-'90s featuring Tom Sizemore, which I can't remember if it was any good, but...
Isn't The Relic also the one that's the group of kids find that pyramid in Central America that's got man-eating plants on it? Isn't that called?
Oh, yeah. I think there might be one called... Yeah, I'm thinking of the one where it's a monster that lives in a museum that comes to life. I remember it being pretty good, but it's been a long time since I've seen it.
I imagine a lot of material called The Relic. But you can go to patreon.com/thepensky-file if you're so inclined. And as always, our special thank you goes to Captain Tier. Special thank you goes to Christian Pouch, Tarek Latif, Chris Tinsley, Mike Burnett, Sean Cardinal Doomsday, Joint Mango, Matt Cutler, Ben Douglas, Neil Brennan, Kyle Barrett, Samuel Custer, Nick Sergey, Bradley Killens, Matt Ross, Rune Bendler, Nathan Elliott, Eric Johnson, Andrew Cholog, Ben Grim Santo, Point XG, Dwayne Hackett, Jordan Cooper, Derek Zajac, Russell Elledge, Kevin Rice, Vol 13 Hero, Stephen Minton, Nick the Rat, Darth Mosk, HH28, Matt Curry 6, Jacob 123, Mike Harris, Jakey's Gamer, Patrick Seba, Captain Brazen, Kevin Lowry, Eric Santuan, Corey Martin, William Scheisler, and Timothy Cooley. Thank you very much for supporting the show. And now patron thoughts. Patrons leave their thoughts about the episodes.
Before we get into that,
Mm-hmm.
when do you think would have been the best time for aliens to expose themselves on Earth?
Best time is in for us, or the most outcomes are possible out of it happening.
Yeah, like if you had to pick a time for first contact with the Earthlings, because it's like, are you like playing the stock market at that point where it's like, well, is this the right time? It's like, well, I don't know, maybe we should wait a few more years. Holocaust? No, not now. Maybe we should wait a few more years. What? Communism? No, just wait a little bit longer. Reaganomics?
Probably would have been late 90s, I think.
Yeah, right before the Clinton scandal comes out is probably the best time to do it.
Probably right before 9/11. Really is that feels like the end of an era there where things seemed like they were going pretty well, and we probably could have handled aliens at that point.
Well, they referred to the 90s as the end of history, didn't they?
Yeah, the fall of communism is the end of history.
Oh, is that what it was? The fall of communism? Yeah, this quaint notion that everything was going to be fine forever, I guess. I don't know.
That we've discovered the capitalism won, communism lost, and that's the way that's going to be. But then we branched out into wonderful versions of terror that have built up around that. So good for us. But that probably would have been the best time. We probably would have, because now if they come down, half the population is not going to admit that it happened, and the other half is going to say it definitely did happen.
We've also determined that the long-held belief by things such as Watchmen and Independence Day that all it takes is one uniting global catastrophe to bring everybody together. Clearly not the case.
Yeah. I'd like to see those movies now, actually, if you take that idea and just it doesn't work out for everybody. But thank you, patrons, for supporting the show. Here's some patron thoughts about it, just like it seems like every episode is about not working out for these guys. Thomas Darnell says, The Communicator, a nod to TOS is a piece of the action and an episode that really feels like a TOS homage. It's not at all hard to see Kirk and Spock in the script. I do like the feel of it a lot. I feel like actually many episodes are referenced from TOS, but it's not a great episode. How is it this difficult to get their communicator back? Can't they beam it back or beam it into the vapor? Even leaving it with the locals would have done less damage than their attempt to get it back. It's a low 3.
Why do they need to go down there and search on their hands and knees for it? Why can't they pick it up on their sensors or some shit?
Sensors seem really
from the Enterprise,
really wishy-washy in this era, which is maybe a technological thing that I could get behind, but it always just seems wishy-washy just because the plot demands it. Like that one where the last episode where T'Pol's hunting down Bruce Davison. When they get in the bar, she's like, he's somewhere within the 50 square meters. It's like there's no way for them to pinpoint where he is. He's in this bar somewhere. It's strange.
It's been so long since I've seen him. I don't even know if I'd recognize him if I saw him at this point.
There he is under the table. I think a Bruce Davison parody account liked our tweets that mentioned his name.
That.
Too. It was all Japanese, so I assume it's not really Bruce Davison. Matt Ross says, Reed, hold on to your stuff, you putz. I guess this is like Piece of the Action, but with a darker and more boring color palette. There had to be a way to beam the device away. And the Suliban ship sure got roomy. Good thing they got to keep it since Shockwave and not give it to Starfleet to research. Again, apparently it's from Broken Bow. I'll be willing to be corrected about this, but I also thought it was Shockwave. Why even bother coming to this planet if they're pre-warp? To me, this was also draggy, but at least Archer got his ass kicked. It's a good question as to why they're going down at all in this situation to this planet. You think they'd have, especially since they have this cloaked ship, you think they would bring that down and hover around invisible in the sky and sort of take pictures of them and stuff like that? But no.
I know. I love that this is the first. I mean, I guess Trip has been working on it in his free time or whatever, but I love that this is the first time that they were like, wait, we have a ship with a cloaking device. That has to be useful in some way, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Not real.
Real TIE fighter design. Very small interior. A lot of people sitting on each other's laps, and you have to fit 5 people in there. Vol 13 Hero says, Starfleet should really learn from this instance that they shouldn't go to the surface to observe pre-warp societies because either someone leaves technology behind or someone gets injured or kidnapped. But no, they don't learn their lesson and continue making the same mistake in pretty much every series chronologically after Enterprise. However, it's not a bad episode, so 3 alien face makeup kits out of 5. Point Extra G says, another example of Archer not being very good at his job. If you don't want to tell them you're not from their planet, that's fine. But how can making up crap that escalates a Cold War into a World War be preferable? Just stay quiet and don't say anything, and that'd be the better than what they did. And a better episode would put Trip's invisible hand to good use.
That would be a great Star Trek episode if they came to this planet that was under constant destruction and ruled by like an iron-fisted a dictator or something, and then it turns out the dictator is like an ensign from one of the starships who's like, guys, it just got really out of hand. I don't want any of this. I just kept lying on top of lies on top of lies. If I just told him I was an alien, none of this would have happened.
Feels so good to just tell the truth.
Yeah.
It feels great to get this off my chest. Benjamin Espinoza says, The Communicator, this is a solid Enterprise episode, capital E on the episode. They took the premise of what Enterprise should be about and the screw-ups and mistakes made by first warp-capable ship called Enterprise. But like Enterprise, they pulled back when they should have shown us why the Prime Directive is needed. I want to see what the results of violating it are. Archer and Reed were willing to go down with the ship for a directive that hasn't even been established yet. 3 popcorn jokes out of 5. Popcorn jokes. Calbert says, the invisible hand groping.
Yes.
Communicator is TOS's piece of the action without the charm, comedy, color, coolness, and charismatic characters. It's a neat idea that's perfect for Enterprise to explore, but they don't push it far enough. Other than the one great scene between Reed and Archer, the big thematic questions are pushed to the background, and the episode spends far too long on the most basic and uninteresting parts of the plot. I also wish that they doubled down on the ending and showed the crew's actions kickstarted a war between the two factions rather than just lamely hint at it. 5 time-wasting invisible hand subplots out of 10. Yeah. I do like the scene between Reed and Archer. It is how, like, what percentage of this series is built around people getting beat up for information? Like Archer does it a whole bunch of times, just sitting in a chair getting slapped around. Also,
I did really like when the general like gives the nod over to his commander or whatever, and then he walks over very intimidatingly and then gives him like the lightest backhanded slap I've ever seen, and then he's like,
I like the first one where he does that. He's like, "Oh, you're not going to tell me, huh?" And he winks to the guy, and the lieutenant walks, but the lieutenant does a little bit of a fake out. He doesn't walk at Archie. He walks like he's going to go past him, and he just backhands on the side. Just want to keep him on his toes.
Is the backhanded slap like a movie and television creation? I can't imagine that
why you would do it in the first place. Yeah,
like why would you do that if you give him like a, you know, what the 5 fingers say to the face, you know, right across the cheek, you know?
I honestly think it's a gender thing in TV. I think if you slap a guy with the front hand, you're basically a woman just slapping him, and you know,
interesting.
Like I think that they see it as a more masculine version of a slap. But it's not a punch. It's not a full-on punch.
The backhand is a more masculine version?
The backhand is more masculine than slap. Like, if I were to slap someone with the front hand, like Charlie Murphy with Prince or whatever, that feels more effeminate, I think, in TV than a tough guy general coming up and giving you a backhand. Feels like it's more masculine or something.
Okay. Masculine in that I think it's masculine because it's less effective. Because it seems more dismissive, you know what I mean?
It's like insulting. It's supposed to be more insulting.
Yeah, it's not there to do damage. It's there to do it's to emasculate you or something.
Yeah.
So in this case, I don't think it was the best choice because clearly that guy's technique was not great.
You got to take the wedding ring off before you start backhanding people. Otherwise, you're going to hit their teeth with your ring and stuff like that. Horrible noise. Thank you, Kyle. Next is Latte Librarian says, an overall boring episode where Reed makes a mistake he should definitely be fired for, but isn't because, quote, everyone makes mistakes. Hard to get excited about the plot when you know the Enterprise will make it out all right in the end. Once again, T'Pol has to say the moral of the story out loud so Archer can connect the dots. 2 invisible hands out of 5. Communicator it's 2 more. Neil Brennan says, credit where it's due. This is a great idea for an episode. A pity then that it's as generic an execution as you'd expect from Enterprise. For example, how long did it take for them to think up the name The Alliance? It's all action nonsense here as soon as the first bar table is flipped. What a pity. This could have been a cool little character episode about mistakes and consequences. 1 middle-aged white man out of 5 that are always on screen at any one time in this episode. Woodrow says, the Communicator really bothers me that they never name the aliens or the planet. The show had me laughing when I found out that if caught plan A, the plan A was to attack government agents with hand-to-hand combat in hopes of punching them all out, even though they brought phasers. Not sure Archer instigating an arms race against the Alliance's iron-infused super soldiers is redeemed because he was willing to die for a lie worse than the truth. Archer never convinces anyone but Reed that this is a situation worth dying for. It's a low 1 out of 5. A fairly split reaction to this one, actually. A lot of 1s and a lot of 3s.
But neither one of those options is particularly good
for the rating, the rating outcome. What are you going to give this one? I'm curious. I had a hard time. I thought about this one, what I'm going to give this one. Sometimes episodes come along where I really think about what I'm supposed to give the score for, and this is one of them.
I think I'm going to go a low 2, because if they hadn't had the scene with T'Pol at the end, it would have been a 1. But the fact that they tried to save it, at least conceptually, does it a little bit better, knocks it up a bit for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not like this is not their best work.
I was actually battling between a 3 and a 2. It's somewhere in there for me. I think I'm going to give it a 2. just because it's really redundant at this point. But I didn't think it was as flawed as some of the previous episodes have been. It's just boring, really. That's like its main issue. So I'll give it a 2. I'll give it a middling 2 score, and Clay will give it a 2 as well. At least we broke the streak of 1s, which was the last 3 episodes were 1s, which has never happened on the podcast before. I don't know if I've said that on a podcast episode, but we've never had a streak of 3 consecutive 1s except for this past Enterprise stretch. We had 3 1s in 4 episodes on DS9 was the next closest. But not 3 in a row.
Breaking barriers every week on this show.
I know. I'm glad it didn't continue, though.
Do you think Archer could have gaslighted his way out of this situation? Like after they, once he starts bleeding and they do that like X-ray, do you think he could have been like, your blood, it's red? And he'd be like, what? No, it's not. No, it is. We could see it. Like, no, you're crazy. Your internal organs are all in the wrong place. I don't know what kind of sensors you guys are using, but my internal organs are totally fine. Sounds like your doctor needs, maybe you should, could he,
no one's healthier than
is it ridiculous enough that he could just talk his way out of it that way? Just be like, everything you're saying is not true.
I think you could play it up as this is such an insane situation that no one's going to believe this. And I think that's the approach of telling them the truth actually takes that kind of a turn. And I think he could have done that.
Like he could be like, listen, let's say for a second that what you're perceiving is correct. Your options here are 2 things. Either 1, it's not correct and there's something wrong with your sensors, or 2, aliens exist and they're on your planet trying to infiltrate your shit. Which one of those would make you sleep better at night? And it's like, maybe we need to check the sensors on our X-ray machine.
Do another diagnostic. Thank you, patrons, for leaving your thoughts. Thank you for supporting the show. You can go to patreon.com/thepensky if you want to support the show. And we are done. That is it. Clay, do you have anything you want to plug?
We just had a Badass come out last week, which was a couple good episodes. Well, one good episode, one terrible episode with Terrible Trio and Harlequinade. And this week we have John Carpenter's The Thing on the Rotten Horror Picture Show, which will be very fun. We have a special guest on with us to talk about that one. And we're still trying to hit our Patreon goal so we could bring you guys some monthly horror franchise coverage. So if you want to check that out at patreon.com/PenskyFile, that'd be much appreciated. We're in striking distance, I think. I don't know if and when we're going to get it, but I think we can.
Yeah, just for an update, I initiated annual memberships for people. So if you sign up for a year,
annual memberships initiated.
You get 2 months free, which is good for some people.
Not me, because I got bills to pay.
Month by month. So there's that.
Wes has 2 kids, and you're taking 2 months free.
I know.
What the hell's wrong with you people?
So that's an incentive to sign up for that for the long term. There was something else about Patreon. Oh, we're doing the Halloween the Star Trek episode and a Halloween movie. So that's only going to be available for patrons who are patrons like right before Halloween. I'll put a date out there, but it'll be one of those special offers that goes away after that. So if you want the horror movie and the horror Star Trek episode that we're going to be covering, you can sign up to be the $5 tier by right before Halloween, and then you'll get.
And that's going to be, hopefully, it's going to be all 3 of us, you, me, and Amanda.
Yeah, Amanda should be in that one too.
A Star Trek episode, and then also, did we decide what movie, or are we putting them to a poll?
It's still on a poll. It's the platform, underwater, and the silence are the 3 options. They're all modern horror sci-fi movies, and then the TNG or the Star Trek episodes are the Empath, Genesis, and Empok Nor. So. You can vote on those on the Patreon as well. And that'll be over. All right, cool. Thank you very much, guys, for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. We will see you later.